Hey guys, welcome to episode 8. This is episode 8, right? Yes, episode 8. We are on to the 8th week of live streaming lessons here on my YouTube channel. And basically I've been, coming in every week doing a little something which is a topic from my book perhaps, or something that I do in my teaching, or even something that I'm working on. We're all students of the instrument, as well as playing the instrument, teaching the instrument. I still consider myself a student of the instrument, and I love it. And learning, especially in this environment that we're in right now, being able to learn on a regular basis is so important, and stay creative and stay productive. I know we're all going through a lot of craziness in this time, and listen, we have to try to keep a positive outlook on this whole thing. And I do that by doing this. I went live today and changed my heads and did a tuning lesson. So look for that in the archives. Hopefully they still sound pretty nice tonight. So I did have my mic on through that entire intro, so hopefully this is still okay having the capsule mic on during the playing segments. You guys can let me know in the chat if there's anything to think about with that. Before I see some folks are showing up in the chat, which is very cool. Actually, let me let me see. Oh, Vincent LaRussa, I'm dancing to this groove. Billy, sounds great. Let's do this. So it's good to know that things are actually working maybe in my favor tonight. That would be awesome. I'll tell you what, I'm going to be doing the camera switching myself. I'm turning on my overhead GoPro because it's not behaving. So hopefully we get some overhead shots. Right now, I just want to talk to you really quickly about my book, Filling in the Grooves, which is, I've been doing topics from my book throughout these live streams. Tonight, I'm going to be doing the shuffle evolution, but the page in the book that I just played the play along to is the shuffling along section of the book. And this is all about having drum fills for shuffles, because my book is a fill library. Even though tonight we're really talking about the shuffle pattern and the groove and the feel of the shuffle. So I did this track, Shuffling Along, which I have to give a nod to Dave Black from Alfred, because I stole that title from his play along book, which was a kid's play along book, and I didn't even realize. I was just like, Shuffling Along, that sounds like a great title. I'll use that. And then it turns out that that was in Dave Black's book, which is in my library. I should have known that. But so Dave and I both have a song called Shuffling Along. And it's okay. I'm sure Dave is all right with that. What am I going to do, right? All right, so let's just make sure we have some overhead camera. What do we got here, guys? Overhead cam, foot cam, side and front. Okay, so we're in good shape. So at the moment, I'm basically going to go back to some of the shuffles that I just played. And the shuffle evolution kind of meaning how it came from being what it started out as, maybe in the 40s, and then to what shuffles have kind of evolved into. Now, of course, I'm not going to do that all in one night. This is part one. My lesson, The Shuffle Evolution, is a gigantic document, which I would say there's a lot of grooves. And real quickly, before I even get into my shuffle stuff, I have to give a nod to my friend Daniel Glass and Zorro, who put out this early rhythm and blues drumming book, The Commandments, of early rhythm and blues drumming, The Commandments. There's Zorro has the Commandments of R&B drumming. He and Daniel Glass collaborated on the Commandments of early rhythm and blues drumming. It's got an amazing amount of stuff in this, and Daniel and Zorro, I know, worked really hard on this. And as from a historical standpoint, Daniel is the man. There's a shuffles glossary in here, and then there's shuffles by era, 40s, 50s, 60s. He kind of outlines the whole thing. So the historical information, I would urge you to get this book and check out Daniel's stuff. And maybe in the next Shuffle Evolution, I'll do one of his play-alongs, because there is a couple of tracks that you could play along to in here. But there's many, many examples. Great plethora of information in this book. So I had to give a nod to Daniel Glass and Zorro for that. So I'm basically going to start out with, the beginning of this groove. Now, in my shuffle evolution, I kind of talk about how the triplet feel on, let's say, the ride cymbal is sort of this, let's say it's even groups of 3 notes. And I'm going to put a accent on the downbeat of it. And, what really comes before this is the quarter note accent. But I'm going to play that in triplet form, and then we're going to strip it down to the quarter note. So if I was playing evenly, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And I started to put the emphasis on the quarter note pulse on top of that. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. That's kind of just to show how swing gets derived from this triplet feel. And it doesn't have to be always a triplet feel. There are many different variations of swing. But what we're going to do is we go from playing this sort of even stroke to playing sort of a 3-note pump, like a down tap up, down tap up, down tap up, down tap up. And basically what I surmised by working on this is that if we remove that middle note of the triplet, then we get our swung 8th note feel in literal terms, right? So from 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet to 1 lit 2 lit 3 lit 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. Now, so that's playing the first and third partial of triplets to get that shuffle pattern that we all kind of learn, right? That 1 lit 2 lit 3 4 lit 1 lit 2 lit 3 lit 4. But we couldn't have that without the quarter note pulse. And the quarter note pulse, simply dropping the stick on the cymbal, is basically what this whole thing is built on. So if you strip the shuffle down to just that triplet feel inside of you, inside of your being, inside of your personness. So if I was going 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1, 2, 3, 4 triplet, 1, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. And just giving that quarter note its full duration and feel. Now, what if we were to, let's just set that quarter note pulse to a groove with the whole drum kit. And this is all about, and this is something, Daniel mentions in his book, and absolutely is paramount, is getting sort of a balance between all the limbs. If we were playing some rock grooves, the emphasis sort of sits here, right? Like kick and snare. Right? And if I was to play with that kind of attitude on a shuffle, man, that would not sit too well unless I was playing like a hard rock kind of shuffle, like a Thin Lizzy kind of shuffle or something. But so if we go back to when the shuffle was kind of evolving, we would have to think of yourself as like a mixer, and your ride cymbal is going to be the main voice. And you're going to set the backbeat here on your hi-hat. And so what we want to really get is this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And, it's there to provide that backbeat. It's a different attitude to the backbeat, but it provides the backbeat. It's the same thing if you were just playing, we worked on some swing stuff recently where we were playing more of a jazz ride pattern, which we're going to get to tonight. I hate to put labels on these because I feel like they really don't need these labels. But so if I was playing 1, 2, 3, 4, my backbeat is there. My quarter note pulse is here. And the bass drum is going to be feathered as much as possible on a 24-inch bass drum. and I'm going to play this really super lightly. And if I show you that foot cam, you can see that basically I'm in my slippers, and that basically I'm using my toe, and I tend to play this kind of music from the toe. If I lift up my heel, I'm basically using sort of a still like an ankle stroke. But we want that really light. I would like it lighter. This is all mic'd up. I'm on a 24. I'm hitting pretty lightly. If you look at the bass drum beater, I'm very close to that bass drum. All right, so let's go to what if we were to play the quarter notes on the bass drum in sync with the cymbal. Now, why do we do that? Because we're trying to lend support to a bass player. So if we had an upright player, let's say, and he was playing a walking bass line, a dum, 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 and he was playing quarter notes, we would be just lending support to that, not trying to play and overpower the bass player. No, we're going to play very lightly. So we're going to get the quarter note pulse from here, support from there very quietly, and the chick of the 2 and 4 of the hi-hat a little bit more present than that bass drum even. So let's start out with just these 3 limbs. And even if I was to cover the 2 and 4 with the snare, I would play that super light, quieter than the hi-hat. So now I would get this. 1. That bass drum's even louder than I want it, and basically I'm doing my best with this big kick drum. But if I played that same pattern like this, that's just the wrong attitude if we were looking at early swing and we were trying to make this swing and make this feel right with a band. So that's kind of where we begin. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is, so we have that quarter note pulse established, and now what I'm going to do is in this basic shuffle feel with a backbeat, I'm going to let the backbeat stay on the hi-hat, and now I'm going to play the first and third partial of the triplet along with that. And in fact, how about this? I'll play what we know as the jazz ride pattern over that, and we still have basically a swing feel. It could be considered a shuffle for certain things. And surely, like if this was like an Art Blakey thing, if you ever heard the tune Monin, he's playing the shuffle in his snare hand, sort of the jazz ride pattern on the ride cymbal, quarter notes on the bass drum, 2 and 4 real strong on the hi-hat, and he's playing the heck out of it. And it's pretty killing. I'm going to try to play some semblance of that, and I'll put that jazz ride pattern here. So now we have this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So that's kind of the beginnings of it. Now I'm going to start to play that first and third partial up here. And again, I'm going to let the snare drum ghost that same shuffle pattern. I'm going to play double hands over the feet, let's say. So I'm going to play this. And basically what I'm using is, I mean, on the ride cymbal, I'm using this sort of drop, and then, but like a push-pull almost. I'm pulling my fingers in for, here's my upstroke, my downstroke. I could use a molar stroke, but for me it feels like the wrong attitude, and I tend to play this thumb up, and it's going to sound like this. So I'll just do 3 limbs again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. That's my backbeat. Now the snare is going to double that. And I can start to put a little bit of emphasis here. For me, that bass drum is still a little loud, at least in my head mix. I don't know how it sounds to you, but so that's kind of the beginnings of it, okay? And now what I'm going to do is and by the way, the double hands thing, or Chicago style shuffle, is both hands playing the shuffle together, or that sort of Art Blakey shuffle where we play the shuffle in the snare hand and we play the ride cymbal, playing more of a jazz ride pattern where the quarter note on beats 1 and 3 or the full duration of the quarter note, and then we have that swing pattern. So again, we went from, let's look at this. So we went from kind of how we evolve this right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Of course, I'm feeling 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, to that double hands. Okay, so now another thing that we see in the history of shuffles, and you'll hear this in some of the Texas style stuff like Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff, Texas style shuffles, we're going to play a quarter note pulse on the ride cymbal, and we're going to keep that pulse on the snare drum for the shuffle feel. So we're going to get this. Now I'll start out with the double shuffle, and then I'll strip this down to quarter notes just so we hear how it impacts the time. And I think it opens it up a lot, even though the snare is playing that shuffle pattern here. So it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Quarter notes. Now, if I'm mixing, my head mix is basically largest voice, second largest voice, third largest voice. The bass drum is going to be as quiet as possible. Feathering. Felt, not heard, right? You've all heard that before. Felt, not heard. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is we're going to go to, so the Texas style shuffle with the backbeat. What if we played that a little bit with a little bit more oomph? We would have this. I'm going to play it a little more aggressively because you could use this in sort of a rock shuffle setting, and it would sound kind of like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Right? So just a little bit more attitude on that. Okay, so now we're kind of moving along. We're getting that balance between the limbs, and you know, I didn't really talk about this, but if we're playing that shuffle feel in the snare hand, and I'll show it from overhead first. If I'm playing very lightly on the 1, and then an emphasis or an accent on the 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So I'm using sort of an upstroke and then a downstroke to get that louder note, and tap strokes in between. So it's sort of like tap, up, down, tap, tap, up, down, tap, tap, up, down, tap, tap, up, down, tap, tap, up, down. If I'll give you a side view, and then if I was to play, let me move the screen back a little. 1, 2, so here's matched. Here's traditional. So we're using upstrokes, downstrokes, tap strokes to make that all happen, right? Lovely. Just to use it efficiently so that it works really well in our hands. Now, something that I just played before, I'm just going to address real quick. I call it the sneaky triplet. It's my thing, I think. I don't know. I'm probably stole it from somebody over the years. Who knows? That's what we do. We steal from other drummers. Stop it. Don't accuse me of anything. It's what we all have to do. How else do we learn? Exactly. Yes, Pee-wee. All right. So anyway, so I do this little 3 triplet 4 lit. 3 triplet 4 lit. So it's kind of going like this. 1, 2, 3 triplet 4, 1, 2, 3 triplet 4, 1, 2, 3 triplet 4, 1. Right, so that little 3 triplet 4, I call it a sneaky triplet because by the you play it and it kind of sounds like wait, where did that come from? And it's just a couple of extra notes in there, but I think it has a nice little feel to it, and it swings pretty hard. So and I'll do it traditional or matched, maybe I'll do it at a couple different tempos. So here would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Right, so there's that tempo, and then even at a slower tempo, you can still pull it off. You just have to be real careful about the strokes that they're not loud. Maybe a faster tempo. Let's see, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, I blew that one. Let's see. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I usually don't do it there. There it is. Took me a second to get that rolling. Wasn't feeling it, man. All right, so it's there. Okay, so that's the little sneaky triplet idea anyway. It's just an embellishment. It's not the groove. It's something you can put on top of the groove. And that's kind of the way I use it. And actually, let's just see here. Yeah, so even on the hi-hat, it feels kind of nice when you're playing on that side. So that's 3 triplet 4 lit. Sometimes I will use 2 in a bar. Just a quick thought. Okay, so that's kind of the tempo where I'm comfortable playing it. I'm sure that if you shed that, you could put it at really any tempo. So that's that little sneaky triplet embellishment. Some of this, I didn't put up a PDF yet on this thing, and there's a lot of stuff in here. And so I may not put up a PDF. It may just be this demonstration because I have a whole article that I wrote, and I kind of want to publish that first. And, I reached out to Daniel about getting some of the history from him and maybe contributing. I don't know. We'll see. Daniel Glass, I feel like, is kind of, the authority on this stuff for me. So, okay. So just one more thing. I'm going to mention the let shuffle is what I call it, but playing just the lets. So what if we were playing, and this produces kind of a cool, different kind of shuffle. It opens it up a little bit differently. But it also feels to me like it lightens things in a way. So what if I was playing so what I like about that is it gets away from the backbeat in the hand. It lets the backbeat just live in the hi-hat. To me, it swings really well. And any tempo kind of is good for that. And I use that also in my swing feel, in my ride cymbal swing feel. I'll play that let feel for comping. And I think that swings even harder. Just letting this be my heavy chick backbeat, right? I'm trying to keep that bass drum really, really light anyway. And then if you want to do that little push accent, or the sneaky triplet, right? So that feel to me is really nice. It's super light. It works great at all different tempos. At quick tempos, it's really nice because you're lightening up that snare feel. So that's kind of what I call the let shuffle. This almost sounds like mix shuffle, but it's not mix shuffle. It's let shuffle. What's the matter with you? All right. So so far we have our sort of our Texas feel, our Chicago feel, everything being based on this quarter note ride cymbal pattern, getting the equalizer in your mind of kick drum is super low, the hi-hat is the backbeat, the ride cymbal is the main voice, the snare drum is, depending on the type of tune, is going to serve a purpose to be either part of the backbeat or just comping in the time, right? Or providing some of the swing feel that's in that ride cymbal or complementing the swing feel. I feel like the snare's role is a lot less. Unless you were playing something like, you know, a heavy rock shuffle where you were playing backbeats. Again, a much different attitude. I'm hitting hard. That would work really well in sort of a rock shuffle kind of tune. And so, you know, we'll get to those. In the beginning, it's more about just developing the swing feel and developing the touch kind of, right? So it's really about that touch. And even if you were playing, man, I really love the definition in this cymbal, in this King Ride. Sabian HH 22-inch King Ride. Very nice. Really nice stick definition in that. So right, so, you know, upright bass player, doing some walking on that, and this, the hi-hat, very super light on the bass drum, it would be swinging really hard. Okay, so I just want to real quickly, there's some folks in the chat, so I'm going to actually just say hello real quick because, man, I tend to forget to do that, and then it gets to the end, and I realize, like, oh my God, I didn't say hello to anybody. So I just want to see who's in there and just say hello. And again, this isn't tonight about the fills in my shameless plug in my book, filling in the grooves. It's more about the time feel. By the way, before I get to the chat, one other thing I wanted to make a shout out to Mike Clark, super great guy. Mike Clark put out the Post Bop Drum Book. This is pretty killing. He actually signed the first bunch of copies. This is from Hudson Music, and there's some basically building on the swing feel in the post-bop era, and also working on sort of fills and solos. There's some great solo transcriptions in here of Mike's solos. For those of you who don't know who Mike Clark is, Headhunters, right? Herbie Hancock, man, this guy's got some resume, but the book is pretty killing. So check out the post-bop drum book, Mike Clark from Hudson Music. Yes. And by the way, my book is available on Hudson Music. At the moment, it's out of stock with Alfred. You might be able to get it at Wisdom Media, and you could probably also get it on, maybe you could get it on Amazon still, although I hear it's a month to get a delivery from Amazon. No, I have no idea. But let me just say hi real quick. So I'm going to be doing the chat. I'm missing my Billy. There was no Billy, although it looks like Billy's in the chat. So Billy would usually be running cameras and sound, and instead I'm running cameras. Hi, see, I can do it. I can do it. It's much easier when I have Billy here. Okay, so anyway, so I'm going to say hello to some folks. So it looks like, let me see real quick. Who do we have in here? We have Billy. We have Vincent LaRussa. We have Dave Guerra. What's up? And Lester's there. You know, Lester is an African gray parrot. So even parrots are working on their shuffles. It happens. Listen, shuffles aren't just for humans. They're for... Cooper loves his shuffles. You know, Cooper works on them from time to time. I see my mom is in there. And, my mom is hanging out, which is a beautiful thing. Dale Toscano, she's the woman that raised me. She's a great mom. She made some great dishes when we were kids. She fed us really well. She clothed us. It was pretty good. If I got in trouble, she chased me around the kitchen with a broom. That was beautiful. Looks like Nikki's in here. Hey, Nikki. Or Nikki was in here. Oh, there she is. Yeah, she's in here. And Nico the filmmaker is back. Nico was on my live stream earlier. I did a live stream about changing heads and tuning the drums, which if you missed that one, I think it was pretty informative. It was a 2-hour stream, I think, but I was basically going over head changing and how to tune. And I realized that I have a formula that I tend to tune to the same notes. I think everybody that knows me knows this, or if I've tuned your drums, they probably sound just like mine. I tune in certain intervals. So now I don't see any questions, but that's okay. Rocco said, I like these shuffles. Billy said, Mom in the house. Nico the filmmaker, by the way, one more shout out to him. Check out Nico the filmmaker's YouTube channel. This guy, his kid, he's a kid. He's making these amazing stop animation movies. I always call it the wrong thing, but he basically, does frame by frame animation movies with like Godzilla and Ghidorah and all this cool stuff. It's pretty amazing. I can't believe what he pulls off in his house with just the amount of gear that he has is very nothing, and he pulls off these great little films. So yeah, so that is that. So if there's any thoughts or questions on any of this stuff, field them to me now. I'm going to keep checking back at this at the chat here. And I'm just going to mention a couple things. Sabian cymbals. Love these cymbals. I always give a shout out to Sabian. Amazing products. That's it. Offset pedals. Beautiful pedals. Love them. And some of my favorite products, I'm still using Vic Firth 5As. I'm still using Evans. I'm using UV1s right now. Floor tom is a UV2. Snare drum is Power Center Dot, which is new for me. But I think the drums sound really killer. So there's that. I'm going to actually go back to a little bit of the lesson. If there's any questions or thoughts, field them into the chat area. I'm just going to kind of preview what we're going to do next time. So, we were talking about the last thing was that let shuffle. And then I'm going to get into a little bit of modernizing the shuffle. And so I'm just going to give sort of the precursor to that for next time. And basically we're going to start to talk about putting in ghost notes in between some of the other notes. And like I said, there's way more to the early shuffles than I brought up. There's other shuffles in history, absolutely, that I didn't get to tonight, that if you check out the Commandments of Early Rhythm and Blues, Daniel's book, man, he talks about a bunch of other shuffles in between all of that are really impressive, and the nuances of all those shuffles. But I'm going to talk about, for the moment, getting the middle note. And, this is something, if you're a student of mine, I work on this with you all the time. This is super important to get sort of towards the modern shuffles, the halftime shuffles. And we're going to talk about basically hitting that middle note. So I'm just going to go to the hi-hat for a minute. So if I'm playing that down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up feel for the triplet, 1 lit, 2 lit, 3 lit, 4. By the way, we can just count eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I'm going to ghost very lightly the middle note. And this is all about getting this feel together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice the emphasis is still on the quarter note. And I'm getting this middle note, and it gives us that full triplet sound. And I'm basically playing down, tap, up, 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 down. So loose up here, up, loose again, up, and then that little tap stroke. And it kind of gives us the sound of 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. And now we're getting it here. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. So it's kind of a prerequisite to work on for getting sort of modern shuffles together. Anything like the Lido shuffle. When I say modern shuffles, I'm talking about after the 50s and 60s, when the shuffles were more jump swing feels and kind of straight shuffles, either double hands or half swung shuffles. There's a lot of different shuffles in between. But we're talking about later on when things started to get a little bit funkier and kind of go into a new area, even with the age of fusion and sort of funk. You started to see more of this ghosting type method happening. So if I was to play that let 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, you could do that at any tempo that you can pull off, I guess, and it would work really well. So if I was playing very slowly, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. Or if I was playing twice that. Right? And it's about getting the balance between those two hands to sit really well, even before we put in any backbeats. One and one. Right? So it's about getting those limbs to sit really well. And if we bring it over to the ride cymbal, you see my hand technique changes slightly, because over here I'm using that molar up, low molar up and down strokes, right? I'm dividing my strokes the same way you would for, like, if you're playing a rock groove, and 2 and 3 and 4, and dividing your time so that you're not working hard. And also by using the up and down strokes, we get 2 different volumes for our strokes, right? That's the purpose. We bring out that quarter note pulse, and the ands, the swung ands, are much quieter. Right? So, and hence we can go quicker. Right? So now if I bring it over to here, you'll see I'm just going to use this sort of release, catch and release kind of method. So this is my down, my upstroke, and my downstroke. Up. So it sort of functions just like a molar stroke would, but I'm using a pivot over my fulcrum. Right, to accomplish that. So if I was playing that same pattern, and this is something to practice, working on that. slow tempos. And it's just the mechanics of that, getting the mechanics down really well. And it's super important if you're going to get these kind of shuffles down. Those are the kind of things you're going to have to work on. So that's sort of the thing you need to practice for part 2 of this shuffle evolution when we start to put in. So if we're playing like sort of these kind of grooves. Lido shuffle kind of feel, those kind of things. And I'm going to talk about the differences in the ghosting patterns. Like a lot of them are based on that, right? And how that's going to apply to these different grooves. But there are different ghosting patterns. You know, we'll talk about Reelin' in the Years, which Jim Hodder played on. Rest in peace, Jim Hodder. Jim Hodder lived up the road from my grandmother, so I actually met him as a kid, and he passed away way too early. But he did a different ghosting pattern. So he had, instead of with sort of like the Lido shuffle feel, he was playing more of a quarter note triplet ghosting pattern. So, you know, there's a lot of variations on this. So as we get into that part 2, we're going to talk about those different variations that happen in the snare. And those are super important. Definitely practice that little segment. GoPro video mode. My GoPro just went bananas, man. So basically, that's kind of it for today. Definitely check out the Filling in the Grooves. Check out the Commandments of Early Rhythm and Blues. I think that's a great resource. Check out, Daniel Glass has made a DVD called The Century Project. That's really cool. Check that thing out. Stanton Moore also has a whole section of shuffles in Groove Alchemy. It's another great resource for this stuff. And I'll see you on the next live stream for Filling in the Grooves. And hopefully part 2 of the Shuffle Evolution will be next week. I never know exactly which one I'm going to do kind of until the last minute, so I apologize for that. However, I'm going to keep bringing you these live streams, and I'm going to do more sort of impromptu live streams throughout the week and throughout the coming weeks as we deal with this isolation and pandemic madness. So hopefully I give you a little escapism in this crazy world that we're living in at the moment. Thursday night, 7 p.m., Hand Technique Workshop. Going to be live streaming that. And look for other live streams. If you hit that notification bell, you'll find out when I'm going live. I might be doing a tuning thing. I might be doing something about gear. I might be just in here acting like a lunatic. So however, you know, I come to you, I think it gives us a little distraction from everything that's going on. I'll see you on Thursday night at 7 p.m. and then next week again on the Shuffle Evolution Part 2. And I have to find my closing titles. And then we'll take it from there. I'm really happy that you guys took the time to stop in, and I'll see you next time. Let's do this. Roll the titles.